there, ref. That's he got the ball. Good evening, Tottenham fans around the world, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspurs with your boy Dave and Jack, doing a fan show tonight ahead of tomorrow's game. Gone a little bit earlier tonight. You know, we've got a couple of things on, and plus, not being funny, I do want to watch Real Madrid tonight. So, you know, we are going to run for an hour. The link is up there in the community section for all of you guys, you know, that have the fan show memberships and want to come on and have your say. I think what we're planning on maybe doing today, something a little bit different, just trial and see how it goes going forward, but maybe bring everybody on together. You know, everyone could just have one big conversation. We're going to see how it goes and that. So if you do want to come on and have your say, feel free. But we are heading into this game. The press conference, or some of the stuff from the press conference, is starting to leak out, and we will start going with, you know, the first bit here. And I'll just make this bigger for everybody to see. But, you know, it has been reported that Son did not travel to Germany and will miss tomorrow night's decisive Europa League quarter-final against Frankfurt. And that's coming from Postecoglou's mouth at the press conference. Basically, what he had to say is Sonny didn't travel. In the end, he's the only one that misses out. And basically, he's got a bit of a foot injury. Apparently, he's been carrying it for a number of weeks now. And that he just can't overcome it in time for tomorrow's game. So we are heading out there without Son, which many people would maybe suggest. Maybe it's time for Matisse Tell to turn up. You know, I think maybe he might get that opportunity off the left. So maybe it's Tell time or Tell me the time, one of the two. Someone give me the pun in the comments. But it is a massive blow. It's your captain at the end there. I know a lot of people have had their thoughts on him this season, maybe about him in the decline, slowing down, etc., etc. But the reality is, if in European nights and years gone by, he's been the one that has stepped up, has helped us get over the line. And not having him tomorrow makes this job 10 times harder, in my opinion. Despite his poor form, he's still got 11 goals, 11 assists, and you're taking that out of the team. Not only that, the guy that's usually stepped up in Europe, it's not the news any of us wanted to hear, despite maybe the criticism around him this season, Jacko.
I kind of am at a head loss here. You know, it's just one of those things this season where, you know, you just feel like everybody's at this point gotten injured, or everybody's had a knock. Everybody's had some sort of injury that they're pushing themselves through. And you question, again, the medical team, because, you know, how are they handling the situation? Are they not doing the right procedures to sort of either get the guy back fit? Are they not telling Ange the right situation, or the, you know, the right details, saying, listen, you know, I think you need to give this guy rest in order for him to be healthier later on? Do you also look at Ange Postecoglou, you know, maybe pushing these players through injuries when you just shouldn't be? It's hard, Dave, for me. You know, I'm just, once again, you know, just baffled by just the continued mismanagement by the medical staff, and probably in some cases as well with Ange Postecoglou with the injuries. It's just everybody's had an injury, and everybody's also had injuries at really inconvenient times. You know, it started off with, you know, Udogie being rushed back, you know, because we didn't have a left back at all, you know, to, you know, begin the season with. So he had to be rushed back into the season. Romero as well, you know, had injuries that he's been kind of pushed through that ended up coming back to haunt us. You look at Mickey Van de Ven, one of the ones that you and I spoke about, you know, straight away during the game, where we were like, he's pulled up with an injury here, you know, we should be taking him off. And for some reason, they persisted with him, and then he ended up making the injury worse. I also look at Dominic Solanke, who had an injury apparently in like the first game of the season, and then they ended up playing him for the whole 90 minutes, only for him then to mix the next 3 to 4 games or whatever it was, right? It's just, in my opinion, Dave, it's probably been literally everyone at this point has had an injury, but then also it seems like that injury has been mismanaged by, in my opinion, mostly the medical staff, but also probably to a degree, maybe Postecoglou as well, takes some responsibility for it. So that's just my quick thoughts on it. And this is the worst possible game to be going into it without your talisman, you know, your star player. I understand that Dave and I just before this, you know, on the members preview, we were discussing like, does he technically deserve to start? You know, is he maybe a guy that isn't really in the best of form right now? Like, could you benefit from starting with someone else who might be a bit more confident, or just in a way has been playing better than Sonny? But still, like, you don't want to be entirely without him. At least that's my take. You know, you still want to have Sonny available for this game. And he's technically the captain of the club as well, regardless of what you might think of his leadership abilities and his leadership qualities. Of all the games to be missing Sonny, by far the worst one, in my opinion. Terrible.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, and I sort of agree with that. You know, Look, and this is where I think, with this new guy signing from Arsenal, this is where I think Scott Munn and, to a degree, potentially Johan Lang will be turfed out of the club. I mean, one of Scott Munn's remit was sorting out that medical department. And I mean, it's probably worse than what it's ever been before, which is absolutely disgraceful. I mean, at what point do we start ringing the Argentinian FA and saying, look, can we start sending players out there so that we can start getting them back on the pitch? Look, everyone's been injured this season. It's getting to the point where, the players' wives will start getting injured and stuff like that. It's just contagious at this point. It's nowhere near good enough. And, biggest game of the season, and we still can't get players right. I mean, it's absolutely disappointing, to be quite honest with you. Very, very disappointing. Also, it's former winger Aaron Lennon's birthday. So if anyone wants to put in maybe
that
memory of Aaron Lennon, I absolutely idolized this guy growing up. Really like what he was all about. Small, a bit similar like me, small in height and that. Back then I was a lot skinnier as well. And again, he was an example to me that in an era where it's full of big physical players, that someone like him can still provide, and offer something and still perform at that level. Even to the point where I used to get the slit in the eyebrow and the couple of stripes there. Absolutely love this guy. I know he's had his troubles with his mental health and stuff like that, but he's coming out the other end of it now. So massive happy birthday to former winger Aaron Lennon. What a jersey as well. That's a throwback. Long sleeve as well.
That's so class.
So classy. I do like a long sleeve. Also, this one came out today. This irked me a little bit as well. It's just the tone of it. Tottenham definitely want to keep Destiny Udogie at the club despite interest from several other clubs. But Spurs may sign a left back this summer, but it wouldn't be with the intention of replacing Udogie ahead of a sale. It would be with a view to having a capable backup to the player. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm fed up with the backup. Is that not why we're in this position? Like when we want to make rotational change like we did on the weekend, we end up suffering. The reality is we should be signing players to provide competition, not just a player that's automatically worse than what we've got and he comes in and he's the understudy. You do that if you want to buy a young guy, you bring him in, understudy the older guy, right? I can understand that to a certain degree. But the whole aim should be, and especially with what we've done this season, you should be looking to even bring in players of better quality and laying down the market to these guys and go, show us what you've really got. I just have a problem with the wording and the tone of it.
Yeah. I could see why, Dave. I mean, I also have been guilty of using that word backup, or I know a lot of people don't love the word rebuild sometimes when it's centered around Tottenham Hotspur, but I've been guilty of using that word. What I will say is it's just, once again, a signing that will likely happen a season or two too late, right? We probably needed that left-sided defender and that extra left-sided fullback a season or two ago, and Spurs have always just found a way to prolong things or make things more difficult on themselves in the long run. I don't know why it is. It's like they're trying to either save money or they just seem to have this tendency to love to make things just that little bit harder on team selection for the manager when we only have one player available in that position. It's just something that's happened for a long time now. You could definitely come up with other examples in seasons past, but once again, it's just, it's a signing that will be happening. Thankfully, hopefully will be happening this summer, but I mean, a season or two too late, after then the manager has had to suffer without one.
But where are we learning our lessons? We took that approach in January. We took that approach in the summer. Look where we are this season. Where are we going to learn our lessons? You can't just be signing guys to come in as backups and fill out the squads. You should be laying down the challenge to these guys in the squad and saying, okay, now it's up to you. Yeah, we brought you in on this. You've got your 2 years. Now it's up to you to take it to another level. Absolutely mind-boggling. Anyway, a bit on Van de Ven and his words, about Ange Postecoglou. Oh, no, sorry. I think I've started the wrong one there. But basically, Mickey Van de Ven came out and said that all the players are still behind Postecoglou. They still enjoy the way that he's asking them to play and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting, which will let people come on and have their say on that and how they feel about it, because and it's not the first time a player has come out and said this. This has been a consistent message. Spence said it not so long ago in an interview. Madison has said it before. Kulu has said it before, and stuff like that. And this is a consistent messaging from the team, but yet, from the outset, people still question, are the players playing for them? Maybe we need to look at it differently, and it just is the quality there to do what they're asked to do. But I find it very interesting, so we'll let people come on and have their say. Also, great pictures here. Mickey Van de Ven has traveled. Kulusevski is on the plane. Danzo is on the plane as well. I think that's Richarlison, big slick Rich. Is on the plane. Again, can have a discussion around whether people think he should start. this came out, I think when you're talking TV, interesting. I think it's more fun than anything else. But Jurgen Klopp is currently unhappy with his global director role at Red Bull. I just wonder, could we swing a little something there, convincing that Tottenham is the right place to come, and then maybe just some match stats, that have been put together here heading into the game tomorrow. They do not make great reading whatsoever. Tottenham have failed to progress, a number of times, going into an away leg, in Europe and stuff like that. Here's one: only failed to progress from one of their previous 10 knockout stages ties in the European competition after failing to win the first leg at home. So the omens are against us there. Frankfurt are looking to reach their third Europa League semi-final since 2019, which shows, their European pedigree. Tottenham will be aiming to qualify for a major European semi-final for the first time since that run under Pochettino in 2019. Tottenham have only kept one away clean sheet in their last 19 games away from home. Does not make good reading, and that was against Karabag. And then Etikike has been involved in 7 Europa League goals this season. So that shows that his danger there. So basically, yeah. And then if, Son, that one can't happen now because, he's not available. So, the omens are not on our sides heading into tomorrow, everybody. Let me just have maybe a refresh here, see if there's that new out from the press conference or whatever else. But apart from that, I think we'll welcome some of you guys in, and then we will crack on and get some of the guys on in the background. Then just a bit there about Postecoglou's future, a bit boring. So that's everything there, basically, that's around today that, we'll be bringing on people to have a conversation about. We're just going to welcome some of you guys in, and then we are going to crack on. Big up Dave Johns as well. Please let this be the last time we see or hear Postecoglou. Look, I think many people feel like that for you. For me, where I'm sort of at with it, my man, it's just like, look, I think, the whole thing around Postecoglou is distracting away from what should, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is, regardless of, what the outcome is for Postecoglou and players, come this summer, I want to try and win the Europa League. I want to make Tottenham European champions. And then from there, we can do what we want. If people want Postecoglou still gone, fine, be my guest. But for me, Tottenham comes first before any of this sideshow, in my opinion. Dark Sun G, good to see you. Come on, you Spurs. Hopefully we win tomorrow with a Son, Kulu, or Richie, or Dominic Solanke goal.
Sadly, no Son.
I think the striker call is going to be interesting tomorrow. What does he do? Richarlison comes off the bench, sniffs out a chance, puts it away. Dominic Solanke struggling. Be very interested to see what he does tomorrow. I think it will come down to how long Richarlison has in his legs. Sorry, Jack, you want to say that?
No, sorry, I interrupted you. I was just saying, but unfortunately, Dark Sun G, the breaking news has just come out that Sonny is not available, so it's going to have to be the reliance on the pigeon to come through for us tomorrow, or Dominic Solanke. We need one of those strikers to deliver us goals, right? That's the thing, is that Dominic Solanke just hasn't been doing it recently, and then Richarlison is just never available, so we just never have that choice between one or the other. But really, the big thing is to have one of the strikers deliver with a big performance tomorrow night. We know they both can work really hard off of the ball, but it's about taking chances, and it's about also creating moments for others as well. And it's up to the other wingers, other than Sonny to provide in this game, whether it's an Odebear, a Tell, Johnson. I don't really care. We just need people to perform tomorrow night. We need people to deliver. Big up Dark Sun G, man.
Well, I did have a question, in the pre-match build-up, which is gone now. But usually we've been relying on Son. Is there anyone else, that can step up on these European nights? So we'll answer that. I'll have to change that heading into tomorrow. Big up Adrian as well. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well, buddy. We've also got K32. Hello, Dave and Jack. It's like Christmas Eve. Just wanting the big day tomorrow. We could do it. Come on, you Spurs. Absolutely spot on. I am excited. I'm not going to lie. Big up Shem Teme, Jack and Dave. Ange's press conference is on, so you guys can fill me in. Don't listen to him anymore. I'll be honest, I just go and get the transcripts when they're done and read through it myself. If there's something that has said that's controversial, I do go back and listen to that specific part to get the connotation and stuff around it. But in general, I just think a lot of them are quite boring. You've got a press that are trying to get something out of the guys that they know they're never going to answer. Do you know what I mean? It's just one big cat and mouse game. From the club's point of view, anyone that comes into it is basically trying to get out there with saying as little as possible, and the journalists trying to trip them up. It's just one big cat and mouse game. They're pointless, in my opinion. Joe 04 says Sonny hasn't traveled with the team, sadly. Absolutely spot on. Spurs Nepal says, Son hasn't travelled to Frankfurt. We're done now. Look, it's an uphill battle for that's for sure. Mark New, good to see you, my man. Biggest game of the season with some of our most talented players and one of our most disappointing managers. But if he's leaving anyway in the summer, is this game a free hit? Look, in general, they're all free hits, at the end of the day. But I'd also argue I think it's a massive opportunity for them to maybe prove people wrong as well, that they can find some sort of unity, grit, desire, and actually go on and achieve something. I think that, again, that's maybe an opportunity there for sure. Got King Huddle in the house. Good afternoon. Sonny is out. I know, big news, my man. RST. This is breaking news. Sonny is out. Yeah, everyone's on that. Again, Eurocell saying Sonny is out. Absolutely spot on. Joy Hill, good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've got gamers in the house. Good to see you. Come on, you Spurs. Yeah, come on, you Spurs. Look, big game tomorrow. I really do hope we can do it, but I'm not shutting out, that it's going to be it's made even harder now. You don't have your captain. Archer says, good evening, guys, and chat. Good evening, Archer. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Hennessy, evening, gents. Great to see you, my man. Good to see you in the building. MK Dave says, I feel relieved Son and Basuma are ruled out of the game tomorrow. Both a waste of space. We're better off without them. Well, look, I think we'll put that theory to the test tomorrow. If that's the case, I will certainly remember MK Dave's name. It's the name of my name as well. And I'll credit you, with your outlook on it. Look, I think that is another way you can look at it. It is time, to show that we can't always be relying on someone like Son to dig us out. That, someone else has to step up. And I think it's a good test. In that regard, you're absolutely spot on, my man. Let me see who else we've got. We've got Tottenham Tom. Good evening, everyone. And it's tough. As a Spurs fan, keep our heads up. Yeah, it's very tough at the minute, my man. But good to see you. Kensington Spurs, get Mikey Moore on. Look, I think there's an opportunity there. That's for sure. Look, I really like Mikey Moore. Everyone knows that. I really do. I'm always for giving him minutes. Nick Carey says, evening, Jack. Evening, Dave. I want to be confident and positive. I really do, but it's hard. Come on, look, at the end of the day, us going in confident and positive ain't going to change the outcome. It's just not. I'm sorry. It comes down to them 11 individuals on the pitch tomorrow night. We can sit here, whoop, waller, cheer, and hurrah all we want. At the end of the day, it's up to them and how they can handle that occasion tomorrow night. Not only the pressure around the football club themselves and Ange Postecoglou's future, but the pressure that's going to be put on for them Frankfurt fans. They're going to look to make it a cauldron, look to try and, boo our players in possession, and ultimately look for them to make mistakes earlier on. Then they're going to come at us. They're going to press us and stuff like that. So, we can do all we want. At the end of the day, everyone keeps saying, turn up, support the team. We're here every single game. But at the weekend, when you're 1-0 down and half the people haven't even got their televisions on yet, it becomes very, very hard. And I keep ask the question out there, at what point does it come to them to prove us that they deserve to wear that badge? And I think we're approaching that point tomorrow night, Nick. Big up, my man. Good to see you in the building. We also have Shawnee Maddox in the house. Says this management is atrocious. Yeah, look, it's getting worse as it goes on, my man. It's getting worse. Keeling Governance says Mickey Van de Ven and Postecoglou. We all still have trust in the gaffer and believe in the way he wants to play, which is interesting. I'm going to start that. I'm going to make sure I keep that one there because that was the quote I was supposed to bookmark on Twitter, which I didn't. But so big up, which I find interesting. Like I keep saying, a lot of players have said this season is that potentially why he's still here. And everyone goes, why is he still here? Well, I think the big difference in years gone by is the other managers lost the squad. It seems like he still hasn't miraculously, which is absolutely madness. And we have Woodsy Talks Football. Oh, he's changed his name. Big up Woodsy.
Big up Woodsy.
This is big up, lads in chat. Wonder who he gives the captaincy to. 60 million matters or an unhappy Romero. Woodsy Hotspur here, Lord. Just a reband as I start to make YouTube vids. Well, look,
love it.
First of all, fair play to you. Hopefully, best of luck on your your new adventure, my man. Look, this YouTube, it's wild, my man. It's absolutely wild. But, just do you and see how it goes from there. That's what I say. Don't ever pretend to be anybody you're not. Just do you. Share your opinions, and see how it goes from there, my man. And look, if you need that, and not that I know everything, I don't. I struggle at this shit myself. But if there's any little that we can help you with, just get in contact and let us know. Big up, Woodsy. But look, interesting as well, actually, who the captaincy will go to. I think Romero will probably get it. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. I think he will get it tomorrow. That's just my personal feeling. Michael G. Kelly says, big up, lads. Just in, and here Sonny is out. A loss, but this form has been awful, so mixed emotions. Yeah, look, I think everyone's heading into mixed emotions tomorrow. At the end of the day, we're Spurs fans. We just want to win football. That's all we want to do, my man.
Yeah.
Big up, Jeannie D. Good to see you. Brian Peacock in the house is delighted he's out. Ridiculous to think you're missing him. I don't think so. I think, at the end of the day, you go back and look at our run under Pochettino to the Champions League final. Kane was out most of that season. Son stepped up. He was the big difference maker in Europe. So I don't think it's that ridiculous.
I think he still
On
has also the most goal contributions of anybody in the entire squad, out of all competitions. So even though he's not had a great season by his own standards, like we're still
Mm,
missing him to some degree. Maybe not the biggest degree, but some degree
mm.
we will miss him for sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Big up Adam. He's sort of saying the same thing. I don't think Son is that
Well,
much of a massive miss.
maybe I'm
Fair
wrong.
enough. Alan Leslie says, is it strange Son hasn't traveled with the team? Yeah, look, he's injured, that's why he hasn't traveled. Jeannie D says that kit is lovely, absolutely spot on. Good to see Davy Hall. Come on, you Spurs, if we don't sort out this club, we'll be worse than everything. So, Son really hasn't turned up for a while. No, you're absolutely spot on. I've tried to make the case. You keep hiring a foreign manager at the rate we do. It's what relegation clubs do. Eventually, you will be down there, especially if you get your recruitment wrong. After Kane and Son, finished at this football club. And hey, presto, despite all the warnings, here we are. Absolutely disaster, Davy Hall. Moondog says, big up Dave and Jack. Spurs equals depression. Yeah, right now, look, there's no joy in it. We speak to people, no one's enjoying this. There's no joy in it whatsoever. Absolutely none. I mean, it's hard, to muster positivity. It's hard to muster, any sort of, good feelings and stuff like that when it's going this atrocious. At the end of the day, we all rocked up. Wolves, you're thinking, surely it's a good opportunity to put 3 points on the board and build momentum. And they go and put in the worst performance I've ever seen from a Tottenham team in about a decade. It's absolutely shocking, Moondog. Look, us, we try and take every little bit of positivity we can because we know how bad it can be around Tottenham. But even us, we have none right now, my man. We have none. Big up, Moondog. Good to see you. Future's bright, future's lily white. Come on, you Spurs. Evening, Dave and Jack. Great to see you. Good evening, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. Jeannie D says, we need Tel, Solanke and Johnson to step up. I mean, Johnson, I don't even think would step up onto the toilet right now at this moment in time. Big up. I already said big up to you, my man. Big up, Graham. Good to see you in the building, buddy. Who else? We've got Raygun. No, he's not. He hasn't traveled. Effing hell, great to see you. Mark Jones, good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well, buddy. Make sure we're not missing anybody here.
Blaine
We've got
is,
Devlin in the house. Good to see you. He says, big up Jack and Dave. So front three of Tal, Solanke and Johnson then tomorrow night. The bigger question is, why is Son not traveling to support the group? It's our biggest effing game of the year. Look, I think that's a fair question, actually. The fact that maybe he could have traveled with the group and stuff like that. Was there falling out? Look, I guess maybe we're reading into it a bit much. I think, look, are we maybe seeing some being phased out? I did maybe bring the warning signs around when, he signed an extension and we didn't actually offer him a new contract. I think that was maybe becoming a bit concerning to me, Jack, that I sort of highlighted at the time that I think this could be Son's final year. And look, I do take Bain's point, not traveling with the squad to Germany despite being injured, especially as a club captain. You should really go, right?
I guess it really depends on how injured you are, but if he's injured enough where like just him having to move around and, even on crutches and everything, right? You are just, risking, further injury or just forcing a guy who, especially with a foot injury to have to walk around and, travel around unless they want to push him around in a wheelchair or something like that. He should technically be resting and should try to be, getting back to fitness as soon as possible. I mean, you would then, sort of look at Richarlison, you would look at Dragishin, you would look at a lot of guys that have been injured. They haven't traveled with the squad before. So why would Son? I understand biggest game of the season, of course, but like if he is actually truly injured, which is the case, right? He's not traveling with the team, then he will be at the training ground or at home, you know, resting and, trying to get back to fitness as soon as possible. So that's just the way I see it, Dave, is that we have to apply that logic then to why Dragishin hasn't traveled with the team before.
Yeah.
We've seen Madison not travel with the team before.
I just think, though, as
Romero hasn't traveled with the team before when he's gotten injured, right? Mickey Van de Ven hasn't traveled with the team before when he's gotten injured. So that's just the way I see it.
No, I do hear what you're saying. And look, maybe we are reading a bit much into this. But I do think, as club captain, especially knowing how young our squad is and how capable we are of mistakes, I just think that separates you from the likes of your Dragisons and stuff like that. I don't expect Draguson to have that sort of care. But I would expect Son would travel even more so just to being around the game day for
Push
these
him around in a
youngsters,
wheelchair.
calm them down. Yeah, exactly. To a certain degree. Look, let's wait and see. I think we'll hear more. We'll hear more over the next coming days. But big up, Blaine. I think you raised a very interesting point there, buddy. Good to see you, my man. Now we're going to quick fire welcome some more people in, and then we really do need to crack on. We've got Kurt Smith in the house. Great to see you, Kurt. Hopefully you're keeping well. Kildare, we're in the semi-finals of the provincials, my man, of Leinster. Good win over Westmeath the other day. Good to see you, Kurt. DB, great to see you as always. Good evening, sir. Dan Coy's evening, Dave and Jack. Hope for a win tomorrow. Hope I can leave work on time, or do I stay and work until final whistle? Either way, we have to win tomorrow. Come on, you Harris Army. To be honest with you, I'll try and take work off, or at least try and get out in time for the game. But the reality is you could sit down and 2 minutes in and regret your decision. That's the reality. Against Frankfurt, we were 1-0 down after 7 minutes. Against Wolves, we were 1-0 down after 2-3 minutes. Not even. That's being generous. So, look, at the end of the day, we don't know what way it's going to go. We just got to try and back it and get behind it, my man. And let's see what happens at the end there. Big up Phil P as well. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Did you travel out? Let me know. Make sure where else. Big up Ghosted as well. Great to, or not Ghosted, Destiny 5. Great to see you, Destiny. Hopefully you're keeping well. Ghosted as well. Good to see you. Tenor Pool, Knight of Republic. Great to see you. Would you take Don Carlo if Madrid sacked him? Yeah, of course I would. 100%. He's, very rare you see a guy that's had the playing career he's had along with the managerial career. One of the most underrated managers in world football for how decorated the guy is and the career he's had. Absolutely. Eli, good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well along with Philly, Tony, and Scotty Hynam as well. Great to see you all. Sorry if we have missed anybody. The chat's been absolutely hopping while I've been dilly-dallying around, so I actually do apologize for that. I've tried sort of throwing Jack out of kilter. I've thrown this whole thing out of kilter.
Oh, no, a lot of people in the house.
Thanks. Freelance.
A lot of people in the house. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And feel free to come on. Dave and I maybe Dave is about to say the same thing, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but the way we're going about it tonight is that fan shows just recently haven't really been especially busy. Plenty of reasons we can understand for that. So we're just going to bring everybody on that's in the back end at the same time. If you guys want to pop on, feel free to join the combo. We're going to go for like around an hour, once we get everybody in on screen. And then we're going to watch, the Real Madrid Arsenal game later on, and also just rest our minds, rest our voices for the craziness tomorrow evening. But just in case you guys are wanting to pop on, that is going to be the way we go about things, is that we're just going to have everybody on at the same time. And then we'll, sort of, have a fair balanced, round table like discussion. So please, everybody, feel free to join us. And hopefully you like that. Maybe it's just something a little bit different, for you guys instead of one at a time.
No, 100%. And look, at the end of the day, I don't want it to be all nicey either. If you disagree with people, feel free to cut off. But let's try not talk over anybody, or scream over anybody. At the end of the day, be conscious there's people out there listening with headphones on. That's the last thing they want to hear and stuff like that. So I'm going to bring everybody on. Let's all have a discussion. Can disagree all you want if you disagree with people, but let's not get it into a point where we're shouting at each other. So look, let's go. Trial and error. Hopefully we don't regret this. Let's go. We've got Rhino. We've got Eddie. Paul, I think, will be joining us at some point. And we've also got the Tron in the back end as well. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we keeping? Good. Sorry, that's a general question. I shouldn't do that. But guys, I'm going to throw it out there. I mean, look, let's start on Son, and then I do want to touch on other things. I do want to touch on Postecoglou, and that we will get onto that. But let's start with the breaking news first. Son hasn't traveled. I mean, Blaine made a point. Should a captain probably be traveling with our biggest game of the season? How young the squad is and stuff like that. I mean, some people also argue he hasn't been on form. We're not going to miss him. So let's start there. Would anyone here, make that case that we're not going to miss him tomorrow night? He hasn't been on form. Yeah. I'm guessing probably you, Ryan.
Oh, me first. Okay. Blaming now. I thought you was going to go to let Dermo go first, actually. I'm going to switch it over. Dermo, you first, mate. Go.
Rhino's getting shy. Down to you, Dermo.
Yeah, he should travel. Captain should travel out with the team. He should be there. Steve Perriman was suspended for the second leg of the UEFA Cup final. He was there supporting the team on the sidelines. So was Ray Clements, who was injured. Glenn Hoddle was supporting the team on the sidelines. You had the time when Ricky Villa couldn't play in the 82 Cup final because of whatever was going on politically. He was on the touchline to support the team.
Is there a difference between suspensions and injuries, though? Maybe, Tron?
No, not really, no. If you're club captain, you should be out there. You should be doing the club captain stuff. You're out there. You're club captain for a reason. So you have to be out there. Not unless he can't travel because of his injury. That's the only thing I can think of that he cannot travel because of injury. Well, there was a player, I think it was Bergkamp, wasn't it? He was afraid of flying. He drove out there. So he drove, I think he drove to Holland when Arsenal played a game in Europe one year.
Yeah, he hated flying, so he used to drive to all their away games.
Yeah, so there's ways and means of getting them out there. I mean, he should be there as captain, and that's my opinion. You're captain, you even if you're injured, you still act like a captain. That's the point. So that's my opinion. Over to you, Ryan.
Okay.
Should he be traveling with the team or should he not be traveling with the team?
And are we going to miss him as well?
Well, no, is the answer to the to your answer, Dave. We're not going to miss him.
Why?
He's been off form for God knows how long now. He should just stay at home, rest up his foot, and get back as soon as he can. Personally, that's just my personal opinion. But honestly, I think he should just stay at home, and that's all I've got to say. On to the next one.
I mean, Eddie, then, like, what do you make of that? You know, a lot of people in the chat are saying that we're not even going to be missing Sonny, but then they're also, you know, kind of accusing him of not being a good leader by not traveling with the team.
Look, that's hypocrisy in what people are saying in chat with that. We're going to miss him. We're not going to miss him, but he's bad captain for not traveling. I feel like we won't miss him on the pitch per se. He has been very off it for the last couple of games. Yes, he shows up every now and then, but he has been off it, and this foot injury could, if it has been carrying for the last couple of weeks, could add to that and add to his form, which would explain some certain stuff. But off the pitch, we'll miss him. We'll definitely miss his presence around camp and around the players. He just brings that sort of joyfulness to the squad. And look at everyone loves Sonny, and I just feel like it's going to take away a piece from the squad, and it could prove detrimental on the day because there are a lot of kids in the squad, and if they don't have a sort of per se leader or experienced person, someone who's been there and done it or gotten past this sort of stage in Europe, I feel like it's just won't help the squad overall. So I feel like Sonny presence today would help. Should he have travelled? Depend on the severity of the injury, really. If he's struggling to move, no, he shouldn't. He should stay at home, get a rest, stay with the medical facilities. If he's can move, then yes, I think he should have travelled. But at the moment, we don't know the severity of the injury. All we know is just foot injury, which do tend to be quite bad sometimes. I've had a foot injury. They are quite painful to move around on. So we just don't know what his severity of the injury is.
You know, it's not like we're asking him to walk on or he's going to be on crutches. I mean, we have the ability to put him on something that you can drive around and stuff like that. You know, the club has. Look,
or an immobilized boot, you know, one of those big boots or something like that.
Exactly, you know, there's so many things that you can get around that. Look, my feeling on it is, right, maybe we are being a bit harsh to Sonny, you know, maybe asking him to do something that maybe is a little bit out of the ordinary to a certain degree. But I just feel if I was captain of the team and there was so much speculation around the manager, around the players, you know, the pressure that's on it this season, and I am really batting for the manager the way that other players have come out and said they still are. Regardless of the club or what they said to me or my injury or my circumstance, I'm going to make it my mission to be out there to support the boys through this, you know, to try and help support my manager, to offer whatever little bits of nuggets of information or advice I can give these players in the dressing room before they head out. I think that's just a personal responsibility. And look, I am maybe a little bit disappointed that he hasn't maybe made that his mission, you know, to go and step up and say, I want to get out there. I want to be there, even if I am injured and can't play just for these reasons alone. But if something comes to light, you know, over the next couple of days where it's a case where genuinely he couldn't get out there, I take it all back. But if it's a case where he could have, I stick by what I say. I just think with the pressure around everything, as a club captain, I do think you should make it your mission to get out there if you're the right captain for a football club, you know, if you're really trying to rally the troops, if you really do care. So that's where I sort of feel on it. In terms of, are we going to miss him? I think, look, we're saying no, you know, but that means then Tell has to step up tomorrow night. As much as Tell done well against Wolves at the weekend, can't overlook the amount of games he's been absolutely non-existent. You know, it's a huge ask hoping that Tal steps up. And if he doesn't, that's where you do come back and miss Son. And like I said, in Europe in years gone by, in the biggest of games in years gone by, it's always been Son that steps up. So I think we are going to miss him in that degree. However, to flip it over, I think it, you know, opens up a massive opportunity for someone else to step up and paint themselves as that hero, as that match winner, the guy that we can count on moving forward. You know, it does present an opportunity to other players, but I'm just not sure we're at the right stage for one of them players to really step up and take it. I hope I'm proven wrong. Paul, are you there?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your feelings on it, my man? And then we'll move on and talk about a few more things.
Well, being as I work in travel, sometimes if people have done something to their ankle or their arms, they get refused to travel by the airline, because the airline, basically everything swells when you're in the air. So if you've got a cast on or anything like that that's supporting it, it will swell and it could cut off his blood circulation. So they don't let them fly. So it could physically be down to the airline.
What about getting a boat to France and, you know, getting to Germany that way through the Interrail? You know, like this might
be a lot of traveling, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, but there's ways around it. But Jack, you know, I know it's a lot of traveling. You really are going to the extraordinary, but if you really care, you make sure you're there.
That's the thing, though. I think he should be there regardless. If he can't fly, then as you said, you know, it doesn't take long to get to Germany these days. There's ferries every hour, so I can't understand why he can't.
He doesn't even have to get a ferry. You can get the Eurotunnel.
Yeah, exactly. Makes no difference which way you get there. There's loads of ways to get there. But for me, as club captain, he should be there regardless. The only way he shouldn't be there if he was in hospital. You know, he should be there as a club captain, supporting the players, supporting the team, and showing the fans that he really cares, instead of being like, hurt me foot, well, not going to go now. It just shows the whole attitude throughout the whole season for me, for this club. It's just been disgusting all season.
Some people also, Paul, saying that, yeah, Dave, do you want to get the breaking news?
Just breaking news and we'll let you back in, Jacko. Kevin Danzo and Wilson Odeber are available for selection tomorrow.
Okay. Also, that's definitely something we can talk about. But Paul, just quickly on the whole, you know, people are saying, a lot of people in the chat are saying, we're not even going to miss him anyways. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, you know, haven't we made this mistake already when our senior players go? You know, don't want to mention him again, but Harry Kane, people said we wouldn't miss him. Look where we are now, you know, and I just personally think he's one of our senior players in the squad, regardless whether he's injured or not. He has that presence, you know, and it could buoy people up. You know, it's one of them for me. He should be there, and I think we'll miss him whether it's on or off the pitch, to be honest. You know, we've made this mistake too many times before. He's having a bad few run of games. I get that, but as Dave said, in these important games, he does step up.
Paul, I totally agree with. Sorry, Jack.
Just quickly, Gamer. We haven't blocked anybody.
I blocked him because he was spamming. I mean, he sent in 20 messages in a row. You know, you can't do that. You can't send in 20 messages at once. So I think you know the reason. But sorry.
No, that's fine. Sorry, go on, Dermo.
But it was only for 5 minutes anyways, so get over it. Sorry, Dermo, you want to come in, and I know Dave has some other questions for you guys.
Remind me never to tick you off, Jack, in the chat.
Just don't play stupid, really.
Don't play stupid. Yeah. Look, I agree with Paul. Everything Paul just said, I agree. I mean, you're club captain for a reason. You have to be there. It doesn't matter if we are going to miss him, because Son does give you. Son can play absolutely crap for 80 minutes, and then 10 minutes he gives you that spark, or he does something, or he pops up. I mean, all great players do that. Look at Harry Kane over the years. He could be doing nothing for 80 minutes, and then suddenly he just pops up with something. Look at Luka Moura. Did absolutely nothing. What did he do? Score a hat-trick against Ajax. It's important. Every senior player is there tomorrow. You're supposed to be as one. It shows that, somebody put it in the chat, and I agree, it shows the squad is fractured. There's a lot of fractures. I know Rhino's shaking his head, but I just feel he should be there. He's club captain. He has to be there.
Well, speaking of fractures, you know, that's just us from the outside looking in. But, you know, Mickey van de Ven is the latest player to come out. You know, that's off the back of Madison doing it this season, Spence doing it this season. And who else? There's one more player. Kulusevski's done it this season. Yeah, Vicario, where they're saying, look, they're still behind this manager. They're not looking for a different style of play. They want to try and play this way, etc., etc. So, you know, what do people make of that? You know, you look at some of the performances on the pitch. I agree with people. It leaves that question open. Are they really? Is it just lip service to a certain degree? But where do people fall on that? Are these players still behind the manager? Because, you know, at times when it looks like we lose this game, he's gone, they step up and they get a result to a certain degree. So it's hard to know where they're sort of at. I mean, look, Rhino, you're shaking your head. We'll kick off with you. And then, you know, people, you don't need us to come round to you individually. You want to bite back or whatever else, feel free. Make our job easy.
Yeah, look, I don't agree with it, Dave. I think the whole dressing room's been lost. I don't care what Spence has to say. I don't care what Madison, Kulu, that was earlier on in the season, yeah? Now, the problem is, right, they're doing that just to show that they still want him here next season, for now, until the end of the season at least. But I can tell you that it's not a fact, but you can kind of see it on the football pitch already. They don't work hard enough anymore, right? They've lost all faith in Ange, and I just don't see how anything can actually be turned around. And do you know what, Dave? Before I let someone else come in, I will just say this: I am more entertained of watching WrestleMania on Saturday and Sunday, right, than I am actually watching the game tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, look, I think most people would probably rather join you for WrestleMania on the weekend than watching the shit we watched last weekend. That's for sure, I know. And let's take a couple of comments here and we'll let other people in as well. Johnny Malik says, Dave, nobody is going to slag off the manager in the press conference. No, they're not. But they also don't have to come out and say that they're defending, you know, to a degree, you know, saying that they still back this guy, they still like Ange Postecoglou, that they still want to play this way. They're not looking for... The reality is they could just come out and say nothing to a large degree, you know, but they're not. They're going out their way to make this point, Shawnee Maddox.
You don't think he was asked it? Do we know if he was asked it deliberately by the reporter or not? You know, I'll be able to watch this back.
Look, maybe in Van de Ven's case, maybe potentially, but, you know, Spence wasn't that. Spence didn't have to come out and go as far as he did. Kulu didn't at the time. He wasn't asked on that either, and neither was Madison. So, you know, these players are going out their way to say it, you know. So, you know, I think, Sean, you maybe have to look at that to a certain degree. Brian Timlin says players always say things to support Dave. Action speaks way louder than words. They are flat in 90% of matches now. No, they don't. None of them came out when we're batting for contact towards the end when he was under pressure to stay silent. You know, so they don't have to come out and say things to support. They don't have to at the end of the day. And then the good entertainment beats says fans are not listening to the players. We had a bad season. It happens. Where we move, a process gets setbacks. I mean, anyone else want to come in and have their say on that whole situation about the players?
Look,
hey, can I just
go on, Eddie.
Say something on that?
Yeah, work away.
Go on, Paul.
How can we still be backing a manager that has 17 losses in one season?
No, we're not. I'm just saying what the players are saying. I'm just relaying what they've been saying for a long period.
I mean, what he just said there, fans not listening to the players, and we've had a bad season. A bad season. We've had one of my worst seasons I've seen being a Tottenham fan. It's as simple as that. There's no way we can justify 17 losses in a season. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Sorry,
Dermot. Dermot.
Yeah, I've seen slightly worse on the Aussie dealers in his first season when we had to go to Oldham to get a victory to stay up. Because if we didn't beat Oldham, we lost to QPR 4-1 on our last home game of the season. We would have gone down in the second year of the Premier League. So, you know, I've seen worse. I think some players are still behind Ange. I think they are. I think Ange will have his players that are loyal to him. There's going to be players in that camp are not loyal to him. So I think when Van de Ven comes out and says we're behind this manager, I think he means it. I don't think it's a PR. I think he does mean it. And I think because he came under Ange has looked after him. But I think there is also a little bit of we have to say it. We have to say these things. But I think genuinely Van de Ven is being honest. And I think some players are honest. I think some players like managers to the end. And when managers go, they are genuinely upset about it. Is it good enough? No, I agree with Paul. It's not good enough. 17
What do you make
defeats
to the
and one-
point, Darmo, that some people say 21 defeats sort of, alludes to that they're not playing for the manager? Is that the case, or is it a case that maybe the squad isn't as good as people maybe make it out to be? Because look, the reason why I asked that is because, I wasn't the only one in the summer saying that it wasn't a good transfer windows and there's a lot of problems on the horizon. There were other people, but now all of a sudden, sort of now the narrative is flipped where it's like, well, no, Ange's the problem. This squad is better than what they're showing. And I can agree with it to a certain degree that it's maybe a little bit better than where we are. But I question to what point are we, top 4 quality, top 6 quality with this squad, to a large degree. And that's where I sort of question it to a certain degree. I also would maintain that I don't think this squad or these players are as good as many people make them out to be.
I think that the main problem is Daniel Levy and the recruitment. I think you can blame the managers all you want. You can blame the players all you want. It's about your recruitment in the summer window to make sure you have a squad that's good enough to take on 4 competitions this season. And we didn't do that.
I think it's a case of Darmo, right? The manager ain't good enough. He's been tactically found out. He's walked into a league with, the best managers in world football in it. And also our recruitment hasn't been good enough. It can be a case of both, right?
It can be a case of both, but I think you've got to get your recruitment right first for the manager to do his job. If he has been managing with one hand tied behind his back, like every other manager has been, you have 2 world-class managers in Mourinho and Conte come in that are serial winners. They don't win with us. Why? Because our recruitment was bad. So you can blame the manager. He has to take a slice of the pie. You can blame the players. We've had injuries. We've had the worst injury crisis I can remember as a Spurs fan. 43 years we're following this club, and I've never seen an injury crisis like it. But the play, it all comes down to who you're buying in the summer, and the players have not been good enough. Solanke, not good enough. Hasn't scored since January. We bought kids in. Look, Bergville, I think, has done well. Archie Gray's done well. But it's all about buying the right players, experienced players that are ready to go now, instead of buying for the future. And I think we shot ourselves in the foot this season. And with Ange being found out, he's got one way of playing. Sunday was the last straw for me. I've never seen more worst game in all my years supporting Tottenham. That was just woeful. And the players weren't playing for him. I don't care what anyone says. They did not give a shit on Sunday. And I can take a defeat if players try their best, play their heart out. I can take any defeat. But when they don't try and they're just strolling around, I'm sorry, I can't take that. And I fear for tomorrow night. You know me, Dave, and Jack, and the guys on there. I'm the most deluded Tottenham fan out there. I am completely I am deluded. Even I'm struggling to get any confidence for tomorrow night. Now, if I'm struggling, then there's something seriously bloody wrong. I can't see us winning. So I don't know. I'm lost.
On that Wolves game, and anybody can come in on this. Did anybody lose even if you didn't have any belief anyways going to Thursday night? But did you lose even more belief after watching the Wolves performance? Because Dave and I did say it felt like the worst performance of all the bad performances we've seen. It did feel like one of the worst ones of 2025. I'm not even going to include 2024 because we've seen some shockers there as well. But did the Wolves performance give anybody any further doubts or any further sort of fears for what could happen Thursday night, or did some people just not really care, what happened on Sunday?
Look, Jacko, right? Personally, right? I've gone past literally being at disbelief. I've started to look at it now that you've just got to start laughing at the poor performances, because otherwise you're going to cry. And it's the only way that, like you, Dave knows about my situation. If I don't start laughing about it, I'm gonna lose my mind. So I've got to the point now that I'm just laughing about all these poor performances that are coming in now, literally, because if you're going to put in performances like that, right, you might as well just banter the club yourself, because everyone else has done it. But even this is how bad it's got though, right? And I don't know if anyone else agrees with me on this or not, and tell me if you don't. But even the rival clubs now are starting to take pity on us.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like
I
that.
don't like
I'd
that.
rather the banter. I do agree with that. I'd rather the banter for sure. I know.
Hey, Woods,
You know,
we'll bring in Woodsy maybe since he's been waiting patiently. Woodsy, good to have you on, man.
Big
The
up,
same
Drew.
question
Yeah,
to you.
good to be on. Thank you for having me. My camera's up here, but my screen's here, so I'm not looking down. I'm not
All
being
good, man.
rude.
You can look anywhere you want.
For
Ian
me-
Ferguson saying he lost even more faith somehow after the weekend. What about you?
For me personally, I know we're talking about Wolves, but that first leg of the Alkmaar game told me everything I need to know. I know it's only Alkmaar, but to go away in what was still a knockout game in the Europa League, and for them to turn up like that for me pretty much wrote off. I obviously, as a Tottenham fan, I still hope we can do things, but for me, I saw enough in that first leg of the previous round to go, the boys aren't getting up for this. Galatasaray away springs to mind, although we had lots of injuries and we were playing players like Archie Gray in defence. Rangers away. For me, I've seen enough away performances this season to know that if we get through, it will be a miracle. Not to be too negative, but that's just how I feel.
No, 100%. I can understand that. Sorry, just one quick follow-up question, Eddie, and we'll let you in, my man. Just on that, Woodsy, we were having a debate there as well about, is it down to the manager and the system, or is it that, is it down, and the players are better than what they're being made look, or, is it a case where both are just bad, and we need massive overhaul this summer? Because, I think Drew put in a comment there, he says, making the same mistakes again. Look at what we're being linked with in terms of manager and players, more relegation fodder. And it's sort of, what I claim has got us in this situation in the first place, by signing a lot of relegation fodder and that. So where do you stand on that sort of debate? Is it two things are both wrong, or is it just one is worse than the other?
I think it's a perfect storm. Yeah, I think it's a perfect storm of bad management from the top and a manager who, unfortunately, is out of his depth. I think he's so far out of his depth. I've gone from anger at the tactics to actually, I feel sorry for him in his presses. You can see the press, the journalists, they're hanging the fish on the end of the fishing rod, and he can't help but bite. And I think tactically, if a lot of the goals we're conceding, they're carbon copies. Teams are scoring sometimes 2 or 3 goals from the same phase of play, rinse and repeat, and it's the same things we were conceding 18 months ago, and there just doesn't seem to be any tactical adjustment. What frustrates me is that we've seen in games like last season, the Man City game, for example, when he was getting on at the fans, he tactically adjusted and we got beat by a better team, but we gave it a bloody good go in that game and we looked a lot more solid. And then we get the players back and it's back to Ange ball. But I think the board do have to take their blame. Getting your experienced players from mid-table to relegation teams, I think it adds to our culture problems. Players like Maddison and Solanke, they're probably happy. They live a nice life. Their pay's been doubled, but they don't do the things that top players do to get to that next level, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think, the lack of sacrifice from the players to a certain degree, also has to be held accountable. I absolutely agree with that. Brian Timlin's become a new YouTube member. I presume maybe he's gearing up to come on and have you say, big up, Brian. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. And then we have this from Marquez, and we'll let Eddie come in, and then Eddie, you can answer this one as well.
Sorry, Dave, I just got to jump off. All right. And I've got to jump off because I jump on another show. Sorry.
No
Enjoy
worries.
the show, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
Evening, Dharma. See you tomorrow.
Appreciate you, John.
Feels like Christmas Eve. Go on, Eddie. Have your say, my man, and also, answer Marquez is here. I think it's a fair question to ask if we want a bit of balance.
Look, I think the reason I've lost faith in the sort of system and player and management, it's because of how poor our players are. Seriously, our players are very poor when you consider where we got them from. We got Odegaard from a relegated Burnley. We got Tell, who hasn't played basically all season for Bayern. We got Maddison for relegated Leicester. We got Johnson for nearly relegated Forest. And we're just giving scraps to that forward line, which is incredibly important to Ange's system. You're just giving him scraps. You're not giving him quality. We're doing the same what we did under Nuno, under Conte and Jose and Mourinho. We just giving them scraps, bad players for what their system needs. They needed defenders. Ange got defenders, but needed attackers, and we just didn't give him attackers. and we expected him to work with what he was given, and it's just not possible. And people would say, "Oh, he got to get better out of the players, though." But how? Like poor, incredibly poor. I just don't feel like. I feel like the reason we have so many goals as we do is because it's down to Ange's system. If we were playing with a person who played with a different system, I don't think we would have won a lot of the games. I think we would have drawn a lot more. A lot more of our games probably would have been drawn, but probably will be lower down on the table, truthfully, because the system
if he changes the system, a bit more defensively, because that would be my argument. I think, the way we're set up, as poor as the forward line is, I think he's getting the maximum output of it. I think if we were to change system and go a bit more defensively, your forward players drop back further than what they're playing up. And I just wonder, do we score as much then to a certain degree? I think it's sort of, you're not really solving a problem to a certain degree, are you? You're sort of just trying to pay. You've got two problems, and which one do you solve to a certain degree?
Look, I feel like what we need, because I agree, I don't feel like we would have scored enough because we don't have the players in those sort of situations. Because if we don't have the players to go and score in the positions they're getting in, we don't have the players who sit back and go on and score with the counterattacks. Even though we have scored a lot of counterattacks this season, I just don't feel like we do, because Madison has been proven to be inconsistent this season. Johnson can't beat his man for the life of him. Sonny has proved inconsistent this season, and so has Odobert, who's been injured for most of the season. And Kulu has also been inconsistent in front of goal this season. I feel like Ange has just been dealt a bad hand with Spurs, and it's unfortunate. I love Ange, always will, but I feel like it's like you've been saying for the last couple of shows, Dave. It's coming to the end of Ange Postecoglou. It's do or die for him and the team tomorrow. If he loses, he gets sacked. I'll be unhappy about it because I feel like he's been dealt a bad hand. Haven't had a good go at it. I don't feel like he's been given the best options. And but I'll move on. I'll go. That's life. I'll see what the next manager can do. But if Ange gets sacked and we go to Ryan Mason for the rest of the season, man, we're just going to lose more games because I have no faith in Ryan Mason at all. So yeah, I don't know. No faith for tomorrow, honestly. And I'm a pretty big happy clapper. So look, I lost a lot of faith, especially in that Wolves game. That Wolves game demonstrated me the amount of goals we've given them. I was like, that's just ridiculous. Sawed ourselves in for 4 times. That's ridiculous.
Honestly, it's absolutely put Benny Hill music to it, and put us in a circus ring at that point. It's absolutely disgraceful. Big up, Silent Dove. Good to see you, my man. Look, we all go through it, my man. We all go through that, and hit them places and stuff like that. But, just make sure, you keep up the good fight. It's about, how you come back, your redemption story, my man. So just keep that in focus and, you will drag yourself out of it, my man. Big yourself up and good to see you. And look, keep checking in with us and keep us updated on your progress, my man. Good to see you. Guys, anyone else, is there anything that anyone wants to talk about, that maybe we haven't brought up or stuff like that?
We could do some lineup maybe sort of questions. Some people want to go for Richarlison tomorrow night instead of Dominic Solanke. So who's the forward line that people would go for tomorrow night? Just what you would prefer, not what you would expect Ange to go with. We can go to Paul. You've been a little bit silent. I had to mute you for a second there, Paul, because you had some work going on in the background. Paul, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
What do you want to see tomorrow night, lineup wise?
It's hard, I personally, for me, Solanke has had his chance, but Richie's only just coming back from an injury. Is he match fit? Is he ready to start? Or would he be better coming on for the last 30 minutes or so?
Put yourself in Ange Postecoglou's shoes. Last game, last roll of the dice. Regardless, I think does he have to take the gamble and go with someone like Richarlison? Regardless of his fitness, if you're in Postecoglou's shoes, do you take that gamble, Paul?
I think you have to be honest.
No point in looking at tomorrow when tomorrow's not assured, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but there again, can Richie take his chances? Hopefully he can. On the wings, I don't want to see Johnson start, personally. Anyone but him, whether it's Odobert on that side or Tell. I just want to see Tell and Odobert on either side. I don't want to see Johnson anywhere near that starting lineup.
Well, You know, we'll throw this one at you here from Drusilla as well, Paul. He says, Kulu seems to be the only player capable of holding up the ball. Would you play him on the right just to simply to attempt to keep the ball at that end of the pitch rather than it keep coming back? And I think he's got an absolutely spot on point here. You know, you look at all of the forward line, you know, one thing they do struggle is to hold up that ball.
For me, I'd rather play Kula in the midfield in this sort of game because we keep getting broken down in the midfield and he can play that central midfield role and he's backwards and forwards. I just think if he's too far up the pitch, he's going to struggle to get back. You know, he's only just come back from injury. For me, I'd play him more midfield than I would on the right wing. You know, he can still hold the ball up in the midfield, but
yeah, I just wonder, is that the position he'll come on later on in the game into that midfield? But another player panel that people are mentioning is Mikey Moore. Anyone make the case that Mikey Moore should be given minutes tomorrow night?
I think he should, but I don't think Ange has the bottle to do it in a game that he knows if he loses, it's most likely lights out. I think if he was in a better position, he might take the risk and appease the fans with a good match for a talented youth player, but I don't think unless we're 2 or 3-0 down, I don't think he'll bring more on. I don't think he'll have the ball to start him, which you could say is fair enough because it's an important game for him. So, but
look,
we want to see it.
Some would argue fair enough, Woodsy, but I'd argue, you know, from what we've seen from Mikey Moore,
can't be any worse than it. Yeah.
You know, I'd argue he does more of a winger, and that's why there's a clamour of support behind him to start than what we've seen from Johnson a lot of times this season and other players. You know, I think when he's played, he's provided a bright spark. He's created opportunities, you know.
I think there's a reason why a lot of fans want to see him, because he's looked positive. Of course, he's struggled with some injuries and some like behind the scenes things that isn't really coming out that much. But there is a reason that a lot of fans are clubs in the position it's in, and he's a little shining light for the future. He gets the ball, he drops his shoulder, he takes on a man, basics that wingers aren't doing for us at the minute.
No, I definitely agree with that, and hopefully Donnelly's another one that gets the opportunity next summer. You know, I think he could surprise a lot of people as well.
Anybody who wants to see as an impact player for this game, like anybody that they would rather see on the bench, you know, come on and, you know, kind of win the game for us instead of start it. I know Kulusevski, some people have mentioned they just feel like maybe he's better to come in off the bench. Some people feel like Richarlison would be that guy. Dave and I, you know, kind of spoke about maybe starting Pop Matasar instead of starting Bergvall, have Bergvall finish the game. Does anybody have any confidence in someone being kind of like a match winner for us, but maybe off the bench?
Look, Jacko, first of all, I honestly think that Richarlison, God, I can't even get his name right because he's been out for so long.
Calling the pigeon.
Yeah, well, Richarlison, I think should just play a whole 90 minutes because I don't trust Dom Solanke in any way, shape or form. I've said this from when we first got him, I did not want him, and I still stick by that to this day. And I agree with a lot of the other fan base. We should have Mikey Moore starting tomorrow. Personally, as an impact sub, I can't think of anybody really.
Some people prefer Johnson as an impact sub. You know, they think he's better off the bench than he is actually starting games.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if you're gonna throw that argument up, then yeah, fair enough. But I wouldn't. I don't want to see Johnson on the field. I'd rather see. If you gave me a choice between Johnson or Moore, I'd rather see Moore come on. If you're going to give me a toss up between the two, but obviously I'd like to see Mikey start. To be honest, I just, and then bring Johnson on for the last 10, 15 minutes, whether we're winning, losing, or whatever we're doing. Yeah. So to be honest, I don't see any other option really, to be honest. But Woodsy, are you Ange in or Ange out, by the way, can I ask?
I'm Ange out. Absolutely. Ange out, yeah.
Well, the way you were saying it sounded like you was Ange out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was saying that he's been disillusioned or maybe has lost confidence in the team since the AZ first leg. And there is something to that. I mean, if it wasn't for Vicario, I think we could have lost that game easily, like 2 or 3-0, and then maybe the second leg could have been very different. If you had a preference...
Sorry, Jack, just onto that injury situation again from earlier about Son. Vicario went to games and he was in a boot.
Well, he went to the home games.
Right.
Does anyone have a preference between Odegaard or Brennan Johnson tomorrow on the right side? I think there's a strong chance Matisse Tell will probably start tomorrow night, but does anybody have a preference between one or the other? Eddie or Woodsy? Or looks like Eddie's left. So Paul or Woodsy, any of you guys have a preference between Odegaard or Johnson tomorrow night?
Personally, I'd play Odegaard. I don't want to make Johnson a scapegoat of this season, but let's be honest, outside of back post
goals, though, Woodsy. That's
outside. Yeah, I think there's a big argument that he's the beneficiary of a system where the right winger receives the ball 2 yards out from the goal on an ideal phase of play where the rest of the team does their job. Like, I'm not going to be too hard on him, but it's his first touches just drive me insane. He'll dummy left and then like kick the ball right without meaning to, and then he ends up on the touchline and still refuses to take on a man. Again, there's more problems than Brennan Johnson, but he is a big frustration. So to answer your question, I'd rather see Wilson Odegaard, definitely.
And do you know what? For me, like the way I sort of look at that, I think it comes down to, who's willing, especially for the first 30 minutes, with that crowd and stuff, who's willing to, work their tails off, go and get stuck in. And I just don't look at that. I don't look at Brennan Johnson and see that. I find he goes missing a lot of the times when that's required of the team. And I don't think you can take that risk. I get the guy's got 16 goals. For me, fair enough. Bring him off the bench if you're chasing the goal, and hopefully he can get in at the right place, the right time. I agree with that. But, we also need to create, for the front men tomorrow. With Son, there's more of a burden that you do need creative options down the right. You can't just rely on getting the ball down the left-hand side, putting it across from relying Johnson to come in. Without Son being there, that avenue might, to a large degree, might not be there tomorrow, which means then you are looking at other areas of the pitch. And that's where I would bring in someone like Wilson Odegaard, someone who can take on his man, can be direct, and I would argue can also arrive in at the right place. Let's not forget against AZ Alkmaar, he demonstrated that with 2 goals, So for me, when you put all that in together, why aren't we playing Wilson? Should it even be a discussion tomorrow? If I'm a manager, it's not even a discussion. I'm just playing Wilson Odegaard. And when Johnson comes moaning to me, I'll be like, okay, well, now it's my turn to moan at you. Why don't you beat a man? Why can't you cross a ball? Why can't you do the other 90% of what a winger needs to do? I get that maybe you are preferred to be a striker, but the reality is, kid, you're never going to be good enough to lead a line up front in the Premier League. No manager is going to stake their claim on you being that guy, which means if you want to carve out Premier League career for the goodness of you, and I'm saying this to be nice to you, you need to adapt and learn to be a right winger and learn to bring these sort of stuffs to your game. So instead of you coming moaning to me, I think you're going to leave with food for thought and you have to go away and think about this. Good luck. Close my door on your way out. And by the way, tell Boris I want a cup of tea. That's exactly the way I'd be operating with him because, when you look at it, Wilson Odegaard is 10 times the player. I think has 10 times the potential than someone like Johnson.
His body language is also so poor, Brennan Johnson, that is on the pitch. He's on the pitch for 5 minutes. He's barely made a sprint and he's gassed. And his fitness is very, very strange. And his speed is also very strange for a winger. He's not like agile. He's like straight line, kind of fast, but he can't go. It's a weird play. Like he doesn't look very pacey to me when he's taken, he doesn't take on people, but on the odd attempt that he doesn't like really leave players in his wake like most powerful wingers do. He's I wouldn't even call him very agile.
Well, because he's not very fast with the ball, is he? Woodsy? He's more fast.
Yeah, I think he lacks that technical ability. Again, we can't call different universes, but do you remember Bale back in the day? He could run with the ball, without the ball. Yeah. He was just as fast with the ball at his feet and little taps. Johnson doesn't have an ounce of that technical ability, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Lennon the same, right? Lennon was both quick with the ball and without the ball. You know, he had that also low center of gravity. Not saying Johnson needs to. Johnson's actually quite tall, so it's hard for him to have that. But there is a skill in that to be both quick with the ball and without the ball, because you do need both, in my opinion. And I think, like you say there, if you are fast with the ball at your feet, it shows that you are a good technician, that you are someone that can sort of take it past players with the right word that you use there, you know, agility for this game. Does anybody have any sort of maybe preferences on a midfield for tomorrow? Dave and I were also kind of a bit controversial. We were thinking about not starting Bergvall, maybe starting with Pop Matasar. I think that's an unpopular opinion amongst the fan base. Everybody's in love with Bergvall right now. So Paul, Woodsy, Ryan, any preferences on a midfield?
Hang on.
Well,
Sorry, I threw Dave under the bus.
Hang on, just quickly. We have to give context around why, you know, that point is there, you know, at the end of the day, because we got to remember, we done that for the members, you know, not everyone else has seen that. So, you know, let's not just, you know, the reason why, and, you know, well, my reason why anyway is because, you know, that mistake Bergvall made against Wolves, he's made that 3 or 4 times this season. You know, it's not the first time we've seen it. And don't get me wrong, I think from what many people are expecting coming from the Swedish second division to what he's produced, he has gone on and had a much better season than what anyone could imagine. However, going into a big away game tomorrow night, you can't afford to make a mistake like that. You just can't. And, you know, he done it against Spurs at the weekend. He done it against Newcastle earlier on in the season, and he done it twice against AZ Alkmaar, one away from home and one at home, you know, where he's made these sort of mistakes, costly mistakes in these big games. And for me, I think that's one area that maybe gets overlooked when it comes to Bergvall. And I do think, you know, once or twice mistakes happen, but 3 or 4 times it's a pattern that's starting to emerge. And for me, that's why I potentially don't take that risk tomorrow, especially for the first 30 minutes or so, because it's clear that, you know, when a player's doing that the pressure gets to him, right? So for me, I would go with like someone like Papa Matasar and look to bring Bergvall into the game later on to impact it. That's the connotation around it. Jack just wanted to throw me under the bus there, and away you go, guys.
Well,
any preferences?
Dave, first of all, right, I want you as manager in that dugout tomorrow. So can we all round up a bit of money for Davo to get out there and take Ange's place tomorrow?
I'll do it for free, lad. I'll do it for free. But at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I don't want the Spurs manager job. It's the poison challenge.
But no, for the midfield. But no, seriously, for the midfield though, I would have Bergvall. He's still only young, right? Yeah, he's gonna make mistakes. But then, what young players don't make mistakes? I wouldn't play Saab because he's too clunky. He turns like a Mack truck. Is the best way that I can kind of.
Fair, but have you seen mistakes like that from him leading to goal the way we have from Bergvall? I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but there's a difference between playing poor and being costly.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that he's done it a few times over the last couple, last season, Dave. Last season he done it, and then I'd have Madders as well. I'd have Madders starting tomorrow in. Well, what everyone would like to call the cam position, I think he'll probably be more like right up a striker's backside, to be honest. That's where I think he might be, because that's just the way that Ange likes it. Yeah, I know that's a bit crude. I should be careful a bit, but hey. And then I'd probably have. I'd probably say I'd have to probably take Bentancur, and I don't want Bentancur anywhere near the club. He's another one that's too clunky, right? And
really?
I wouldn't. But if I'm going to have him, that's just for the experience, Davo. Personally, that is just for the experience that he's got. But I don't want. I don't really want Bentancur in there either. But I've got to choose a midfield three, so
yeah,
you know.
Okay, interesting. Let's take this quickly from Jason Bell. He says, met a member for 43 months. Apologies if this has been covered, but is there hate along for the Woolwich match tonight? I don't think we are tonight, are we, Jack?
No, I don't think so. I think we were bad luck charms for Real Madrid the other night, and then I think we're resting our minds and our voices for tomorrow, Jason. But it's also just been a hybrid sort of week. It's been a lot of crazy stuff going on behind the scenes with everything really. So, we'll be better for you next week when it comes to various big up content. But appreciate you, Jason. 43 months, man. It's just ridiculous. The numbers people are reaching. Whoever reaches 50, I will just absolutely bow down to you guys, because for you guys to tolerate us for that long is just insane here. That's over 3 years, man. Really do appreciate you.
Really appreciate Jason Bell. And look, as well, it doesn't help that these European press conferences don't come out till like 6-7 o'clock, which means when I finished here, then I have to go and get my predicted lineup recorded and all that stuff and put it up, which means, so unfortunately, there's just not enough time in the day today. So we can thank, the delayed press conference for that one, Jason Bell. But big up, my man. And then Gary Paul Speed, great to see you, buddy. How are you keeping? By the way, I'll be over there for Crystal Palace game if you're down in and around the ground. It'd be nice to meet up with you, my man, and it'd be nice to speak to you. He says, hello, Dave. No, son, no probs. Top three. It's a chance for Richie, Kulu, Mikey Moore, and a midfield tree of Bentancur, Bergvall, and Matters. Yeah, no, son. Look, I don't subscribe to the notion that it's no problem. I do think he's going to be Miss Gary Paul Speed to a certain degree. I know he's been a bit out of form, but you just look at big games, European nights. He's been the one down the years, and I'll be honest, I've been waiting for a player to step up and be that guy beyond some with what we've signed, and not one of them have shown the ability to be able to step up and be that guy. And judging off that, I'd always put my hopes in Son over the rest of them until someone steps up and proves they can be that guy. But big up, Gary Paul Speed. Good to see you, my man. And then also Faz Radfar 4-1 Spurs. Big up my favorite Spurs channel. 4-1 win Spurs, no doubt. Honestly, if we win 4-1 tomorrow night, I'll apologize to everyone inside the football club. I'll apologize to everybody if we win forward. That would just be crazy. That, honestly, I feel like the Lord has been listening to my calls all season long, and he's finally answered if we win like that tomorrow night, because the way we've been, I honestly, we wouldn't even score 4 in tennis right now, let alone 4 goals in a football game. But big up Faz Radfar, really appreciate support, my man. But Paul, are you there? I know you've been silent for a while, and then we let Michael and Woodsy in as well on the midfield tomorrow. What do you think is the ideal midfield heading in tomorrow's game? Because it is one that we have to get right. We could not leave ourselves open through that middle tomorrow.
For me, I know Bergvall provides the energy, might be an unpopular opinion, but I do think it has to be Sarr, Bentancur, and Maddison, more for the experience. It's going to be a cauldron. He didn't really play well against Galatasaray when we're out there. So, this is slightly more important. And then bring him on the last 30 minutes just to smash through if we need him. That's what I would do. I would go Bentancur, Sarr, and Maddison purely for the experience side of things.
Get a bit more steel with those guys, in my opinion, as well. Just in terms of the defensive effort in the first half. Michael, good to have you, sir. If we're doing a lot of people on screen, just because we only had so much time for the fan show tonight, but also, I think, it's not been about 30 minutes time.
Okay, great. So we'll run for about another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. But Michael, man, I mean, just your thoughts ahead of tomorrow, but then also, right now we've been talking about what our preferred midfield would be. So if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, so in terms of midfield quickly, I think he will default to what he has been doing recently, which is Bentancur, Bergvall, Maddison. I think he lost trust in Bissouma, and you can clearly see that by the amount of minutes Bissouma has been getting recently. And with Sarr, I just prefer Bergvall over Sarr. I don't mind Sarr. I don't think he's like a completely shit player, right? But I think Bergvall offers us like better quality in the midfield. I think. Let me put it this way, right? I think Sarr Sarr covers ground really well, right, and runs around and does simple passes. But other than that, that's it, right?
I know we talk about quality, but has he not got more end product than Bergvall? He's got more goals and assists than Bergvall.
I was about to say that he also has quite a good shot on him, but I just think he loses the ball too much, and in a setting like Frankfurt away, we need to try and establish some sort of control in the midfield. And I know Bergvall doesn't necessarily scream out
are we not giving Bergvall a free pass for giving away the ball? How many times has he given it away and it's ended up in the back of our own net? Are we not sort of guilty of maybe just giving him a free pass in that aspect?
Yeah, I think we are. It's just my personal preference, right? Let's put it that way. I think Sarr is more like a steady Eddie, whereas Bergvall has a higher potential in the game. Let's call it that way, right? So in a tie like this, I would rather bank on a higher potential player, a player that can offer us more and can do something out of the blue, rather than a player who is just a steady Eddie, right? If we had an advantage going to Frankfurt, let's imagine a beautiful scenario where we won 2-0 or 3-1 or something like that, right? At the home game, then I would be more willing to give Sarr the game time, right? Because I think he's better as a destroyer and as I said, covering ground and doing simple things, but doing them on an okay level, right? Whereas Bergvall is more up and down, right? But I would rather try to get the up of Bergvall rather than the average of Sarr, if you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And in general about the game, right? I have pretty much not zero hopes, right? I will never be that way, right? I want to see this team win. I want this team to succeed, right? But unfortunately, I think the way we are set up, you just know we will concede a goal tomorrow. You just 100% know we will concede at least one goal tomorrow, right?
Hopefully
so that means that means we have to score at least one goal tomorrow, right? And I would even go as far as to say that I think we will concede 2 goals, right, or more. So for each goal that we concede, we need to score another one, right? And I just think, unfortunately, I think the fact that we don't have an advantage going into their ground, we didn't win the home tie, I think that's going to kill us, right? I think we'll lose 2-1 or maybe even 3-1, in my opinion. And it's not because I don't want this team to win. Of course, I want this to win. I want this team to win, right? But I just don't think it will.
Do you know what? Well, I'm going to pray to my Kulizeski, Richarlison, and Rudiger shrine that I've got set up in the corner of my bedroom. So hopefully, them players can make a difference. But guys, I do, quickly before we get, we will end off on people's thoughts heading into tomorrow and stuff like that. But I do want to maybe explore this Sarr Bergvall debate a little bit more and see how more people feel on it, because I do look. I'm not grating on Bergvall. I think, I agree with Michael. He's got absolutely massive potential, right? And I think, for a 19-year-old kid to step up that he's made to the Premier League, has been absolutely unbelievable. Anyone that thinks that's an easy step up is absolutely sadly mistaken. He's done an unbelievable job. But I do think if Papamata Sarr was to make some of the mistakes that Bergvall has made, where the ball's ended up in the back of the net, I think he gets a much different reaction to someone like Lucas Bergvall. And I just wonder why, because, the soonest Papamata, and I'm not having to go at you, Michael, I'm just using what you said there, but, you're on about maybe the quality and stuff like that. And when, Papamata Sarr, but, when we talk about the quality, again, Papamata Sarr has more goals and more assists, going forward in terms of output going forward. I get what you mean, maybe in transition in the midfield. I do think Bergvall carries that ball better through that midfield than someone like Papamata Sarr. But even when Papamata Sarr plays poor, the ball ain't taken off him and put in the back of our own net the way it is with Bergvall. So I just want to maybe explore this a little bit, because I do think, maybe there is, us as a fan base, maybe we are guilty of overlooking one player's mistakes, and if another player was to make it, it'd be absolutely ridiculed. So I just want to explore that and see where people generally fall on that, because I'll be honest, I actually don't think Papamata Sarr is as bad as we think. I think, that he's not in that midfield, I think we get ran through more than ever before. When he has played in, when we have played our best football, I'd argue Papamata Sarr has been in that midfield, turning over ball, providing end product and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I don't think there's too much of a difference right now between Bergvall and Papamata Sarr. I know there's a small bit of an age gap, but I'd argue, what we do miss in that midfield is steal. We talk about going on the press, turning ball over. That's something that, that's Papamata Sarr's game. And I just, honestly, I've been surprised this season by the reaction that he's gotten in general, by some Spurs fans this season. Is it maybe a case that he's, 21, 22, and people are waiting for him to maybe kick on and find that consistency through the game? I'm not sure. Someone enlighten me.
I think it is the fact that he's maybe a year or two more senior than Bergvall, and For
I
me
think Sar's
personally,
22 and Bergval's 19. So there's what, 2-3 years? Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think Saar has a lot of positives, but I think that one of his biggest negatives is the amount he turns over the ball. He'll do one positive action, win the ball back, cover lots of ground, and then he'll run through midfield and get dispossessed. Again, this might expose my lack of managerial knowledge, but is there an argument that Bergvall loses the ball in more dangerous positions due to the fact that Ange's 6, if you want to call it that, the tactics are suicidal and the positions he finds himself in with the ball when he can't wriggle away?
Plays in the same tactics, though, no?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I feel like Bergvall just does have better technical quality on the ball, and I do think Saar does catch a bit too much heat. I will be honest. I think Saar still has promise. I just think he, as you mentioned, he hasn't kicked on to that level.
Fair. No, that's absolutely fair enough. Anyone else want to come in? That Paul, Ryan, and then Michael, you want to come in as well, maybe further on? Anyone
for
else?
me, I don't know. For me, it's everyone's talking about Bergvall and how he loses the ball and stuff like that. But what other player has stepped up this season? Name me one in that whole team that has stepped up. It's not just down to one or two players. I just think in a European game away from home, you need what Saar does. You need him running around that midfield. We don't necessarily need someone that's going to be flying up and down the pitch. We need someone that's going to mop up in the middle. We don't need him running through. And then maybe when we need the legs in the last 30 minutes, then bring him on. Bring Bergvall on with Johnson, and then, we might nick one at the end. Yeah, so for me, it has to be, we need to be sturdier. We can't just keep getting played through like butter, like we're not even there. To be honest, that's what it is for me.
But look, right, the problem is, with it all, is that everyone's played absolutely poor this year, right? You can't say anyone has had an outstanding season by any means. No one has, right? And that's including Bergvall or Saar, right? But if you're gonna want one or the other, right? Personally, Bergvall is the better option. He's a lot younger. He's got more energy. He's got everything. To me, he looks more like a box to box. Personally, he looks more of a box to box, and I think that's what we need tomorrow. Yeah, Saar's more solid, but like I said, he's tanky. He moves like a Mack truck, like Jack probably knows what I'm talking about on this.
I don't think Jack knows, but anyway.
Maybe just cars in America are bigger, so maybe that's what he's alluding to.
Yeah. Basically.
I just think Bergvall, to Woodsy's point earlier, I think Bergvall is more willing to take risks in possession. So he'll try, something on the half turn when maybe Saar wouldn't. But to Dave's point, when he has done that, he's gotten then dispossessed and has gotten punished for it on a couple of occasions. And Saar is probably a bit more safe of a player, but it goes both ways. A guy who takes more risks, technically you might get more reward from that. But then, with a player that is a bit more safe, then you don't maybe risk those moments where you're getting transitioned on so easily.
Yeah, and
I think the statement, Dave. Sorry, Karen.
And I do get that from your point of view, Jacko, right? Like what Dave said. But Michael, just one thing, just before I pass it off, what makes you think it's going to be different tomorrow, Michael, than any other time of the season?
I don't think he does.
I think he just said that he's not confident.
We'll let Woodsy back in, and then we'll transition to Michael, and then we've got a comment there from Michael.
But I said we'll get slapped up 3-1.
He doesn't think it's going to be different, right? He doesn't.
I don't think it's any different, right? I think, sorry, just quickly before Woodsy gives us his opinion, right? I think we will play exactly the same way we've been playing whole season, right? I honestly think the best course of action against Frankfurt tomorrow would be to play a bit of a defensive football and try to catch them on a counter, right? They are not good defensively. We have pace on the wings, right? We have Solanke, who is good in transitions and as a box striker, right? Use that. But no, we will try to dominate the ball. Ange will get a stiffy when we get 60% possession and concede 3 goals, right? And that's the way the game will go. Like, I honestly, like, I don't I don't have faith in those games because I know the manager won't adapt tactically to see the best result for the team, right? It's as simple as that. So, yeah, I think we are getting slapped.
Okay.
My quick point was just I think you started that debate with a good point, Dave. There is not much between Bergvall and Sarr, which is why I think it's quite 50-50. Like the ups and the downs really aren't that different in my opinion. But I agree with Michael. I think we will get absolutely slammed. And if I'm being honest, I think you could drop prime Rodri or prime Kante into the system, and I think they wouldn't show the levels that they play in the teams that they played in, because such is the defensive responsibilities and the tactics of the system. I just think it's lopsided and doesn't work in my opinion.
This is a very happy clapper thing to say here, so people can just feel free to slate me down with this one. But maybe it's one of the final points we can make. This is just a good context, for the game tomorrow, right? In terms of wrapping this conversation up. But in my opinion, I'm still thinking about the missed chances from that first leg. I believe firmly that we should have won that first game. So who's to say that we can't play similarly to a similar level in this game, and that that maybe that is the chance that Spurs could win this, because we're all saying we're going to get slapped up, it's going to be a 3-1 4-1. We should have been the team in the first leg that won 3-1 or 4-1. Frankfurt were very lucky that we didn't take our chances. Granted, that's happened all season that we haven't taken our chances, but who's to say that we don't play similarly well tomorrow and then we do actually get the result? Because
it's a good question, but I think we've seen enough evidence based off previous away performances this season that our team doesn't or cannot turn up away from home. Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, the Rangers game, the Galatasaray game away from home, you could kind of make the excuses for the depleted squad at that point of the season. But as I mentioned at the start when I came in, that first leg against Alkmaar told me everything I needed to know. If you can't turn up against, I think they're like a fourth or fifth in the Dutch league, maybe even lower. If you can't turn up against not even one of the best Dutch teams, then away from home, then I struggle to see how we can get past a Frankfurt team away from home.
Fair point about the away from home aspect. Michael, what do you make of my happy clapper prediction there? Or at least comment.
Yeah, so I agree with you, by the way, that we should have won the home tie, right? I think it was one of the better matches in recent times, right? The way we played. And I think we were a bit like, do you call it unlucky or do you call it the lack of finishing skill, right? That depends on which way you approach it from, right? But I think we should have won the home tie, but unfortunately we didn't, right? Thus I'm making the prediction, because if we won the home tie 3-1, I would still say we will probably lose the away tie. But if we got, as you said, we probably deserve to win that game 3-1 or something, right? Or based on chances. So if we got a 3-1 going into the away, if we lost 2-1 against them, then we go through, right? Unfortunately, I think because we drew at home, I am pretty certain we will lose the away game, right? Because as much as I think we dominated them for large parts of the second half, I think it was kind of I don't want, because it's always like that, right? The team gets dominated, they get a draw, and everyone says that, this was the game plan, and they plan to get dominated from the beginning. Not necessarily, right? And I use the word dominated loosely, by the way. I use the word dominated loosely before someone in the comments jump on me, right? But the point is that I think it will be a much different game at their ground, right? They have 50K mad fans behind them, right? And as much as you know that they are the third best team in the Bundesliga, and I think they lost 4 games at home in entire season, right? And I think 2 of those were against Bayern and Bayer, so the teams above them, right? So I just don't see us winning the tie, right? Of course, if I'm surprised, right? If the team surprises me, bring it on, right? I am more than happy to eat a humble pie and be proven wrong, right? But I just don't think I will.
No, look, the reality is usually you make an educated guess off form and everything else, right? Records and stuff.
Yeah.
Everything is telling us, absolutely everything is telling us we are in for heartbreak tomorrow evening. Absolutely everything. However, I cling on to the 10% of hope in me, and that's in every Spurs fan. I don't care who you are. I know it's even in Ryan, as much as he tries to profess it's not, I know that's in there where you still hope, you still have that 1% that tells you, do you know what? We can prove everybody wrong. So look, I think that's where we sort of everyone is heading into tomorrow's game. Everything's telling us it can't be done. And we are actually hoping that they can stand up, show us a bottle and something that they haven't done this season and produce a miracle. If they do, I think everybody will be delighted. And we've got this from RST, and we will close off on this. We'll get people's thoughts on it, and then we'll end off. And then, I need to go and do the predicted lineup, and then, try and catch the second half of Madrid Arsenal. So we'll get everyone's thoughts on this. RST says, Mickey had a very interesting response to a journal question. Don't ask me why I don't play every week. Ask the gaffer for the entire panel. Thoughts? I mean, who wants to go on that one first?
Yeah, it was a bit damning. Can't lie.
Yeah,
wishes he would have played more. Maybe Ange is preserving him too much. I mean, a lot of us have asked for Ange to be, preserving Mickey, but maybe Mickey wishes he plays more.
Well, look, right, first of all, just quickly, right, on the Frankfurt game tomorrow, and then I'll go on to that question. Like Stel would say, we will crap the bed in when it comes to Frankfurt tomorrow, in Frankfurt, because they're too hostile. So, anyway, going on to this question, I just don't think Ange absolutely likes Mikey. I just don't think he does. He looks like he's had to play him because he's had to play him, not because he wanted to play him. There's a difference, personally, and that's why I think he's not going to play him unless he really has to. And that's my answer to the question. On to Michael or whoever's next.
Fair. Paul, you there? Do you want to have your say on the Van de Ven quotes? People are saying, it's a bit out there, it's a bit off.
It is a little bit, just sort of like to say, is he over preserving players because of what happened previously, like when he put them back in and they got injured again straight away? So was he over preserving? It's hard to say just from a comment, and journos, they'll automatically ask questions that are going to make talking points. That's what they do. So, but for me, I wouldn't look at that. If he was fit, Van de Ven is always the first name on the team sheet. So, it's one of them. He obviously didn't have confidence how fit he was.
What I will say is it one where maybe we're reading a bit into it because, in the same press conference, he did come out and said he's still playing for the manager, everything else. I wonder, does he just mean, instead of asking me, well, I'm not playing, ask the gaffer, because maybe there's a longer answer to it around injury and the sports science and all that sort of stuff, or maybe he just doesn't want to have a pop at the medical team and he's sort of just playing it off, but I would say, in the same press conference, he did say they're still all playing for Ange. Look, it is a bit strange, but I need to go and listen to the question and the way he answered it before I can really, make my full presumption on it. To be honest,
yeah. For me though, it's like anything. It's 1 minute they're all heroes, and the next minute you're all zeros. It's a tough game, football, and if you don't say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and don't back it up, it's always going to come back and bite you.
For sure.
So for me, I think they have to show support in the manager. But there again, I think they're having digs at the other areas of the club because they're trying to show us that everything isn't all right above them. It's not just the manager; it's completely throughout.
No,
didn't Van de Ven's agent? Sorry to get you off there. Didn't Van de Ven's agent come out last week or early this week and talk about him playing for Real Madrid? Do you think the two could be correlated, or do you reckon it's just not a misquote, but just a blunt answer from Van de Ven saying, don't ask me. I didn't pick the team.
That's the thing. It could very easily be that where he's just look, don't ask me. I think it very well could be that. I just think where we are right now, with everything heightened, everyone's just looking for something to, go, there's fractions within the squad and stuff like that. Even though Mickey Van de Ven came out in the same press conference and said they're all still fighting for the manager and stuff like that. I do think it is a case. Are we reading? Are we just looking for things now? stuff like that. I wonder, is it to that point? Just quickly big up the old lad. He says, with Sonny out, Ange will focus on attacking down the right-hand side this time instead of the left with Kulu. Judson won't start. That's all Ange is capable of. So I don't feel comfortable at all. Look, maybe that is the case. I wonder, would he surprise us and go 2 up top and do something a little bit different? But he has said he's never going to change. So I think you're probably right, Dad, to be honest with you. But Jerome, look, let's get you in. I'm sorry about this, my man, but we don't have too much longer left. But look, let's get your thoughts, Jerome. How are you feeling in general, over the whole saga, and then also, about tomorrow night?
Not much confidence for tomorrow night. Don't have much confidence after that Wolves games. To be honest, I lost all faith in this team. I'm done. I lost all faith in them. I can't believe this. I just cannot believe what I saw in the Wolves game. Like I told you guys, my last video, my team is just average for me. Now you're gonna go to a crowd, like a German crowd. That's very loud. Like it's the loudest crowd we really hear. And you're telling me we're going to do something over there. Those guys always crumble every time. So there's no confidence in me for them to even go there to do anything at all. So, nah, I don't see us going through. I don't see it. I have zero confidence. I'm sorry. No, this team is just, nah.
Let me ask you as well. Look, in fairness, you have sort of banged on about the quality of the players, and you've been very, very consistent with that. And I sort of do align with you on that. Look, if it doesn't go well, potentially Ange Postecoglou is out of a job Friday morning. What do you make of all of that? Just quickly.
If he goes, he goes. Look, things are not working. It's just not working between them. It's just not just on the manager. It's the players. It's team. Something is not working. It's not working at all in there. It's a medical team or whatever you want to be. Something is not right. Something is not right at all happening in there. It's like it's not clicking between them. So if he goes, he goes. Doesn't matter. But to me, it won't change anything. It doesn't matter. We can bring whoever we want to bring after. We can bring Iraola. We can bring whoever you want to bring after. It won't change anything. Because to me, that team is the same. It's an average team. We have the same issue as Manchester United. Same thing.
Yeah.
We can bring any kind of coach, good coach, but the team is rubbish and we will not perform. People can tell me, as soon as Ange goes, this is a different, it will be a different team. That team should not be 14 or 17 or whatever. I'm sorry. This is where the team should be. 10, 14, 17. This is where we are going to be moving forward because those players are average. They are absolutely average. I don't see anything in them that gives me any confidence that under any other manager, there's going to be any improvement. Because you're telling me you make that many mistakes in every single game. Every single game they played, there's a stupid mistake and we concede a goal. Nah, this is just, I've lost all faith. Like I said, I think this is the worst squad I've seen in a Tottenham shirt. I've seen Spurs in the 90s. We were bad. But the thing is, what we've done with the squad is we said, they are generational talent. They are this, they are that. There are so many talents in this team. We shouldn't be where we are. No, I'm sorry. But this team is a worse squad.
I sort of agree with your comment about where we're similar where Man United are at because, Man United sign good talents, we sign good talents, but they never really come in and be that difference maker and kick us on. And I think there is a lot of similarities, in terms of lack of leadership, players that you spend a big money on ain't coming in and really transforming the club's fortunes, chopping and changing managers and stuff. I think it's a very, very interesting point you make there. And we are both sort of have accelerated down at the same rate and are both in and around the same position. I think, a very good comparison there. I think you're absolutely spot on. But look, I think we'll go around, give everyone one last say, and then I think we'll call it an evening, guys. So we'll start with you, Rhino. Quick say on whatever you want, and then, thank you very much for giving up your time this evening.
Yeah, no, look, like I just want to say this, just like quickly. Big up to everyone on the panel tonight. Big up you, Davo. Big up Jacko. Like, love you both. You know I do. You're like the only family I've got. So, and
Appreciate
I'm
that,
always
man.
here for everyone.
Although you're a pest, I love you too, man.
Trust me, I might be a pest sometimes, Davo, but you love me really, mate.
I do. Nah, big up right now. No, look, we disagree in almost everything, but I still got good time for you. Very, very good time for you, my man. Really appreciate you coming on tonight. Paul, anything else you want to say on that, and then we'll let you go as well, my man.
Yeah, for me, regardless of what I've said tonight or what anyone else has said, we're in Frankfurt tomorrow, European quarter-final. I'm going to forget about it all. My happy clapper rat's going to go back on, and I'm hoping going to turn up and smash it 5-0. I don't want to see, I don't want to talk about what's in the past. It's been done and dusted. We can come back to that next week. But let's go out there, European quarter-final. Let's enjoy it. Let's get out there and get through to the semis.
Love it.
Absolutely love
Come on,
that.
you Spurs.
Absolutely love that. Big up, Paul. And you know what? You're absolutely spot on. I mean, we could talk about all the problems Friday, if things don't go well, So I do think, hopefully tomorrow, we can find it within ourselves to sort of, just sort of get up for the game and get the support behind, and see how we can get on. Woodsy, over to you, my man. Anything else you want to say, my man? And again, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed your input.
No, thank you for having me on. First fan show.
It's not the last time we see you around here, lad.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on and sharing my link, Kelly. Much appreciated. Nice to meet everyone on the panel. First things first, Hala Madrid. Get those lot out of the Champions League tonight. Come on. Mbappe, Vinicius, etc. Come on, you can do it. Secondly, I will be watching tomorrow. Come on, you Spurs, as the flag says. I'll be watching from behind my sofa. And yeah, let's hope we don't get bad like I predict. And last of all, big up Michael. First time I've been on show with you, but I've seen quite a lot of your shows on Tottenham Away. I think you're quite balanced and speak a lot what I think. So GG, keep up.
Big up, Woodsy. Big up, Woodsy. Look, make sure it's not the last time we see you around here. Really have enjoyed your input, guys. We'll just put in a comment there, Woodsy, and his name will come up there. Guys, click on his name. It'll bring you across to his channel. Make sure you smash the subscribe button. Starting out on his journey, so make sure you get across there and show Woodsy the love. Michael, it's great to have you back around. We did miss you for, the while that you were away, but it's great to have you back. I'm not sure how long we have you now with your busy life, coming up on a long married life and stuff like that.
Busy life.
Yeah, exactly, lad. Anything else you want to say before we end off, man?
Yeah, boys, listen, I want people to remember that when we do these shows, we analyze things from tactical point of view, and we say opinions that, at least I always try to say opinions that, of course you are emotional about your team, but I try to keep balanced, as you mentioned. When I see the team is not playing well, I'm not going to go full Delulu mode and just say that we are brilliant and all that stuff, because I just think that's lying to yourself, and that's the worst thing, because then you get hit twice as hard when the reality kicks in, right? So I would like to remind everyone that even though I might predict us to lose, right? If you ask me whether we will win tomorrow, I will say no, right? But that doesn't change the fact that I will watch the game tomorrow on the edge of the seat, and I will keep backing the team. And this is why I started following this team, right? Because it's not as easy to be a Spurs fan, right? But I actually, in a sick way, enjoy it. not to the extent of this season, obviously.
I used to, Michael. I'm starting to come up to here with it now. The older I'm getting.
Yeah, obviously not to the extent of this season, right? Because this season has been a complete shit show, right? Let's call it for what it is. But yeah, all I gotta say, right, is just remember that we are all Spurs fans, and the reason why I'm also saying this is there were some events between different YouTubers recently, and you guys probably know the context I'm talking about, right? And I'm not giving attention or anything, right? I just want to say to everyone that's gathered here on the panel and everyone in the comments, remember that we are all Spurs fans, right? We all want for this team to win. We all want this team to succeed, right? We maybe approach it from different points and we maybe have different like solutions to the problems that this club faces, right? But even though, as I said, we are all Spurs fans, right? And this is what matters the most. And we all got brought here by the same club, so let's just remember that, right? And as I said, I might not predict us winning today, but I will definitely cheer on for the team. And as I said, I am more than happy to eat a humble pie tomorrow if they prove me wrong, right? I am more than happy to come here and apologize to players and to Ange and apologize for my opinion. But I hope they prove me wrong, right? But I just don't see it, right?
No, look, 100%. And look, what I would say is I do echo that. At the end of the day, we are all Spurs fans. We all have the one common goal, regardless of what comes out or amount and stuff like that. We do all have the one common goal, that we do want to achieve success, And look, at the end of the day, like I keep saying, the longer there's infighting and the longer we're fighting amongst each other, the worse this club is going to get. I think, the quicker we realize we're the solution, I think, the quicker we get things done and quicker we put pressure on to get things sorted out personally. But look, regardless of what the fallout is tomorrow night, no one needs to apologize for their opinions. Let's not go down that silly realms and stuff like that. What I would say is if we win and we go through, absolutely brilliant. Tottenham Hotspur live to fight another day, and the dream of lifting Europa League becomes one step closer. If we go out, I think the majority of fan base gave this a fair opportunity. It is what it is, and it's just come to a natural end, and we move on, and let's see what we can do next season. But big up, Michael, really good message. And lastly, but not least, Jerome, my man, wish we could have got you on earlier because I know you've got a lot of good things to say, buddy. But look, anything you want to end off on, my man?
Yeah, no, I'll just echo what everybody's gonna say. Even though as much as critical I'm gonna be, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow 5 a.m. and watch the game. Doesn't matter. Still my Tottenham. Nothing we can do about it. So it doesn't mean anything. So even though there's no hope or anything, I'm still gonna watch. If we score, if we win, still gonna jump with joy. So
I will be on a planet no one could take me off if we get through tomorrow night.
Definitely. Definitely. But if we lose, it is what it is. And hope for the best after that. But
all right.
We'll see.
Good man, Jerome.
Friday is going to be a very interesting day. It can either be one of the greatest days of our life in recent memory, or it could be, a day where this football club, is in all the headlines again. But guys, look, that's it from us. We do have to end it here. We've got a couple more things we need to go and do. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody that's joined us this evening. Let us know, give us feedback, in the comments or whatever, wherever you see us, on how you actually like this approach to the fan show. Do you prefer it this way? Especially you guys coming on. Do you prefer it this way or not? Or do you prefer sitting there waiting and having your own time? Give us feedback on that. But guys, absolute massive game tomorrow night. Hopefully Real Madrid serve up the entree tonight, and then hopefully we give the main course and dessert tomorrow. That's hopefully the way it should go. But guys, massive game tomorrow. Get to bed early. We'll see you all back here tomorrow. Make sure you get the colours on. Big European quarterfinal. And let's fucking go, baby.
See you all tomorrow, everybody. Huge day. Huge day. The do or die. Get ready for it. Rest up.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Ange out.